The dramatic story about the waste management scandal. Have you ever thought about who owns those garbage cans placed at the corner of your street? Never, right? Well, who wants to talk about garbage at all? But here we are discussing a massive scandal pulled off by this waste management company between the years 1992 and 1997. Now you're interested, so let's talk about it. Hello everyone. Welcome to another brand new video on this channel. Today, we won't be discussing the rise or fall of a company, but today I've brought to you a very dramatic scandal that was pulled off by a garbage dumping company. Imagine, all you have to do is dump other people's garbage and you make a scandal out of it. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into this scandalous and dramatic story. Before the 1950s, waste dumping was majorly the job of local government bodies, or in some cases, it was the small private firms that used to do that. There were no strict laws and acts in place for the firms to act a certain way, as the regulations were quite relaxed, and this was a universal practice. However, after the boom in the industry around the globe, things pretty much changed. Now, it wasn't just the small amount of organic garbage that needed to be removed. The Industrial Revolution came with lots of new products. Customers' preferences changed, demand increased, and people were buying more and producing more waste. Well, all the products that were being produced and sold had packaging, which was supposed to be dumped later. What happens when there is a gap in the market? Exactly. The private sector and big firms enter the market to take over. So did the waste management company that was previously known as the Ace Scavengers until it was acquired by Dean Buntrock and became Waste Management. After a while, Dean Buntrock took the company public, and whatever money he received from the buy-ins, he invested into the company. He revamped the company by buying new equipment, lots of new trucks, and whatnot. They were doing perfectly fine for themselves. Even in the 1980s, they reported a profit of around $1 billion. There were a few issues around these times that came up when the company was trying to do something illegally, like dumping toxic waste from the industry into places where it should not be. However, that wasn't much of an issue as they quickly admitted to these small frauds and mistakes, and things went back on track. It wasn't until 1992 when things started to change for the waste industry. Their revenues started to go down. Sure, there can be several explanations for that, but I believe the major impact was from the economy. From the start of the 1990s, the economy wasn't performing at its best, so the demand for goods went down a bit. With the demand for goods, eventually the amount of garbage being produced was lessened. Now, it wasn't like a situation where a firm is facing a situation of filing for bankruptcy. No, waste management wasn't anywhere near such a situation. But the challenge waste management was facing was a genuine one as well. So the thing is, when your company goes public and then the stakeholders, majorly the shareholders of your firm, want to know how your firm is doing. Also, besides the ones who already have ownership of shares, those who are interested in buying new shares see the financials to project their earnings. This scandalous case of waste management committing fraud came up in 2002 when the SEC filed a case against them. However, this case didn't make it to the mainstream media as it was blocked out by the more highlighted case of those years, which was Enron's scandal. However, it's not something that could be missed out when it comes to major financial scandals across history. So in 1992, when the revenue for waste management went down, instead of stating those low figures as they were, they went off track. This scandal of waste management was basically a financial and accounting scandal, where the figures they reported to keep the stakeholders' interest intact and also attract new investors. So basically, what the firm did was they stated higher revenue figures and intentionally removed a few very important expenses from their financial statements. Well, before I go further, let me give you a small disclaimer that here I will discuss a few financial and accounting terms that might not be easy to understand. However, I will try my best to explain them in the easiest way possible. So, what waste management did was, in some cases, completely removed and in others, they partially tweaked their statements to show revenue where it wasn't. When the SEC filed the case against the CEO and 5 other executives from Waste Management and the findings came out, then it became public knowledge how they pulled it off, starting with altering the depreciation figure in their financials. So for those who don't understand what depreciation is, in very simple terms, when you buy an asset that isn't going to deplete immediately, then you cannot count its total value as an expense. Like a garbage truck in this case, where you cannot put the price of the truck as an expense in your single year's balance sheet, as it will last some years. So there's a proper way to calculate the depreciation figures for any asset, in which the salvage value of an asset is subtracted from its overall value and divided by the number of years it would last. This is where things went off. What Waste Management did was it increased the number of years and also raised the salvage value. This, in turn, decreased the depreciation expense that would go into the financial statement of that particular year. This is one loophole of accounting that they played around with. Others are also worth mentioning. The second fraud they committed was not decreasing the value of other assets in their statements. For example, as waste in the landfill increases, its value as an asset is supposed to decrease because after a point it becomes useless. However, Waste Management did not do that. Instead, they kept writing some arbitrary figures from themselves. Other frauds that they committed were not mentioning the costs of failed projects, assigning salvage values to the assets that necessarily have no salvage value at all, and misguided figures of their assets to avoid the income tax that eventually led to a decrease in the expenses. Well, it wouldn't have been so much fraud if they had just misguided SEC with their inflated figures. It was the stakeholders that were scammed. Every measure they took and fraud they committed was aimed at stating inflated revenue figures in their financial statements. And everything worked fine for them. You must be wondering, wait a minute, did Waste Management think and committed all these frauds themselves without any outside help? Well, obviously not. They knew how to dump your garbage, but they weren't accountants. The firm that Waste Management had hired to take care of their accounts was Arthur Andersen. If you have heard this name before, then you must be fully aware of this firm's role in the Enron scandal. But that's a topic for another time. Back to Waste Management. So, the CEO of Waste Management, that guy, Dean Buntrock, asked accountants at Arthur Andersen to make companies' financials look good, and so they did. There were points where the accountants would say, how are we supposed to write this, for example, where Dean asked to assign salvage value for the asset that have no salvage value at all. The account did inquire, however. It is reported that the response from Waste Management was, we know it's neither rational nor do we have any proof for this, but let's just go forward with it for now as it's what we want. And to my surprise, the firm did as they said. I guess everyone was facing some economic constraints at that time and losing a big client wasn't an option on the table. However, don't worry, as with all the 5 executives, the CEO of Waste Management and Arthur Andersen all paid for their crimes. Waste Management paid over $30 million as fines, and Arthur Andersen was also charged $220 million that they paid along with Waste Management to cover the losses of stakeholders. The amounts they paid as punishment weren't at par for their crimes, but it is what it is. Today, Waste Management is doing great. We've seen some great revenue figures in recent years. In 2021, they reported $18 billion in revenue. So you get the idea. The frauds they committed will always stick to them as a negative mark on their portfolio. So that's the end of it. Do let me know what you think of this scandal. And that's a wrap to this video. I hope you liked and enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for future notifications. Do let us know about your feedback in the comments section. Until then, take care of yourself, and I will see you guys in the next one.